coffee. Oh, it's still pouring. Never mind.
Oh, well, we're live. Good to see you,
Hello.
man. Danny,
Hi.
Kallman. Yeah, it's good to see y'all.
Good to see you too.
We were talking about locations. You're in Los Angeles right now. We're coast to coast holding a live hangout. You know, unthinkable. I still can't quite believe the technology exists, and I love it. So I got a little bit of feedback. Is that me?
Yeah.
I think it's here.
Maybe my phone was close to
it's
the
this
speaker.
We're gonna just change that real quick.
Okay, that's fine.
So
Danny,
so
you and I have been working together over the last couple of days on some projects. Couple of these articles, are kind of rocking it pretty hard. The one on millennials, you did a really beautiful job with that, and then the one on guns today, it's doing well, and then we've got a piece coming out soon that actually deals with, I think, with a really important topic. It's a little bit of a difficult topic, but it's in the news today because it has to do with the relationship between population diversity and the capacity for a sort of unitary state, you know? And I was trying to draw attention to some empirical literature that says, the more diverse the population, the less sustainable, the idea of a unitary, omnipotent, welfare state and really public sector sort of system that everybody believes in. And that the growing diversity of the country has actually got the left worried. I mean, by the left, I mean the progressives, right? It's got them worried that their system that they carefully constructed over 100 years is now like fractured. And that's kind of an exciting prospect to me.
Yeah, and especially with the welfare state, and really it's sort of the state as a family sort of breaking down because people don't feel like not everybody looks and acts like them, and so they feel like less of a family, and so they're less willing to tolerate state paternalism because of that. They're less willing to have the state be the father and the mother and providing for the state like a household, which is a good thing because that means that that people instead resort to support networks on a more local level, to actual families especially.
That's fascinating to me. It implies a number of things that are a little bit counterintuitive, really. I mean, one is that homogeneous populations go together with despotic, how do you say?
With despots.
Yeah, sort of a paternal, that's the word I'm looking for, a paternalistic, sort of state, the more homogeneous the population, the more inclined that the state is to sort of grow and install a stable and viable and sort of popularly supported system of transfer payments, for example, and regulatory regimes. But the more diverse the population is, the less the state can sort of manage it. And I think that's interesting because, I mean, what that implies for us, for people who believe in liberty, is that we should have a preference really for more diversity within the population. I mean, look, like, just for example, there's a lot of implications. I'm just not thinking through this, but for a long time, we've heard conservatives warn about, the immigrants, Islamic immigrants that are wanting, they're longing for Sharia law, and what are they really saying? They're saying, look, if we get a bunch of immigrants that have different kinds of religious traditions and attachments, then we'll never be able to have, one nation under one state, and the question is, like, why should we regret that, really? Actually,
it makes perfect sense. It's the one thing the state hates. It's competition for their statehood. They don't want another state coming in and threatening what they've built. Makes a lot of sense.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah.
And one argument that is raised is that, well, people are coming in and bringing their statist ideology, and so they're going to flood the democracy.
Yeah.
And but the thing is that these are the people who are fleeing the statist ideology of their
Yep,
homeland.
yep.
So they're the least likely to import that, and the most likely to appreciate how much better the liberty in their new home is as compared to the statism of their old home.
Yeah, that is, that's always been true, at least in American history. But still, there's a lot of fear mongering out there about it, and I don't know. I just, I was fascinated to look through this literature just to see how panicked the left is. Really, the progressives, I should probably say. I wish there were another word for these people. But anyway,
Yeah, because it discombobulates them too, because they want to be for diversity, but they also want the welfare state, and when they see those two conflicting, they don't know which way to turn.
yeah, that is absolutely true. And I was reading today, because I'm obsessed, as you know, with this sort of eugenics period of 100 years ago, where everybody, all the progressive left is all in favor of like exterminating inferiors and unfits. And one of their agendas was to create a kind of homogeneous population that they thought was more compatible with sort of central planning. That was their ambition. It's like we can just get rid of the outliers, the people that are not like us, then we'll have a more viable state system. And that is really kind of baked in to the progressive view of the world. So it makes sense to me, for example, that Bernie Sanders is like against immigration. I mean, he probably has to be. In the end, every socialist today is a national socialist, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, he's actually just being more consistent than a lot of his fellow progressives.
Yeah.
You can call it democratic all you want. You're not fooling anybody, Bernie. But I mean, I think it goes beyond just the homogenous look of these people too, because obviously the number one concern, I guess, neoconservatives have with immigration is the look of it. Oh, well, that person looks different, but it's also the way they think different. Because they're coming from these places which, like you mentioned, are way, way worse off. So they're bringing in that knowledge of like how bad it can get, and like that's why someone like Bernie, although he claims to be a socialist, and he doesn't want people from Venezuela coming here and telling us how bad it really gets in Venezuela because of socialism.
Yeah, that's true. And there's also labor union concern that he speaks for the labor unions. The labor unions hate competitive workers. But you also mentioned neoconservatives, and I'm struck by that too, because the neoconservatives very much. I mean, it's fascinating. You listen to like Donald Trump's sort of nationalist rhetoric. Where did he get this crap from? I mean, you can look back at the '90s and see the neoconservatives were saying the exact same things. I mean,
Yep.
Does anybody even remember this? I mean, the Weekly Standard, when it was first founded, and I'm trying to think when that was, early '90s, something like that, mid 1990s.
Yeah,
their first issue was
mid '90s.
They were trying to bring back what they called national greatness conservatism. National greatness That was their
That was David Brooks's hobby horse.
Make America Great
in
Again.
In the New York Times. Well, but yeah, it's funny though that they rail against Donald Trump's rhetoric, but like you say, it's the same. I mean, even the same word. Like David Brooks's national greatness conservatism and Make America Great Again. I mean, it's the same like nationalistic sort of phenomenon that they've been trying to inculcate all these years, and it finally works and it finally takes root, and now they're upset.
Oh, right. And also it was openly statist. I mean, David Brooks was like, we built the Panama Canal, we established great national parks, which is fascinating because Trump was like, is against like state control of Western lands, he wants national. And they would herald like the moon landing and, the Hoover Dam and, every kind of crap. I mean, I remember reading this stuff thinking, what is with you people? I mean, that was before I fully realized that they're not just not libertarians, they're like against libertarianism,
The antithesis, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also, I think it's a important thing to point out that even though they'll say they're against Trump because of one or two things that he's doing that isn't exactly the way they want it to go.
Look, I would like to know more about this because I've heard the theory. Because, I mean, look, I can tell you honestly, I'm not entirely sure why they're against him.
Yeah.
I mean, I know why I'm against him, but I'm not sure why they're against him. And I've heard, like, my friend Scott Horton. Yeah, Scott's just convinced it's really an Israel issue. You know, that they're all about, they're basically the Kudniks, and Trump is not, you know, owned by them. And
not fully.
I mean, I guess there's something in me that resists this. It seems like too conspiratorial. It seems a little too baked in. I mean, I think there's an element of that, but I wonder if there's something more fundamental. And let me just try this out on you. I mean, I don't really know, but I mean, is it their view that you can't be the ruler of this great country, as they say, unless you sort of come up through the ranks, unless you're sort of part of their system, unless they sort of permissioned you in and vetted you?
Exactly.
Definitely. I mean that's the whole issue about him being an anti-establishment candidate, that you've got to be vetted first. You've got to talk the way they want you to talk. You've got to have the background. You've got to get
They're control freaks. They're control freaks.
Yeah.
They want to have their control. But I see, like Ryan, you know Ryan Dawson, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Dawson's a big anti-neocon. He owns anti-neoconreport.com, ANCreport.com, and he does anti-Israel stuff too. But he's convinced that Trump is an outlier, that they don't have control of him. But I would say that maybe that's like one of those one or two things that he's not step in line with, but it's really bothering them because it's a issue he could go loose cannon on. But I think he's mafiaed up. I mean, his whole background is in construction and has tons of mafia ties, which has ties to the Italian mob, the Jewish mob, the Russian mob, all the mobs in New York. So, you know, I think he's just a little bit more loose than they'd want him to be, while he does fit in line, like we're saying, with a lot of their original neocon views.
And another thing, beyond just the specific issue, there's the general issue of foreign policy, that I think that they are so worried about continuing the war and the empire, that even his rhetoric about, even if he does, he might not follow through with it, but just talking about Iraq war being a mistake, Libya war being a mistake, talking about getting along with Putin, just at the off chance that he might actually follow through on those things, that it just sends them into conniptions.
Because he hasn't been vetted, like you were saying.
Yeah, I think that I do get exactly what you mean there. I remember when he said that in the debates recently, I just had something in me, thought it was like he'd just hurled a dead cat into the temple or something.
Yeah. Like you said, the Iraq war is a bad idea. What everyone's thinking that. Why are you saying it out loud, though?
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but
which is strange. I mean, I find it interesting because we freely these days admit that Vietnam. I think we do. Don't we admit that Vietnam is a bad idea? I mean, more or less, isn't that?
Unless you went there. Unless you were there, then you say we won, which is ridiculous.
Right. But I mean, more or less, it's permissible within the American canon of the civic religion to say that Vietnam is a bad idea, I think, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, why can't we say that about Iraq? I mean, maybe it's just too soon. I don't know.
It's like the South Park episode where they show the Osama bin Laden flying the planes into Colorado. It's 10 years. It hasn't been 10 years since we did it, so it has. We haven't decided it's been a bad idea for 10 years. We can't freely say that.
And because it's too similar to interventions that they want to do now.
Right, Iran is one letter off.
Because Iran and Iraq was just the letter thing and the regional thing, and also just the fact that they're weapons of mass destruction lies that they're trying to base it on, but also Syria, because this will be three with Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and now Bashar al-Assad. Mm-hmm. These will be three secular Arab nationalist rulers potentially being overthrown with the third one. I mean, the first two were, and this one might. And what it has done is just unleash the floodgates for jihadis. Absolutely. And so now terrorists are just running rampant in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria. And so if someone pulls the veil, if Donald Trump pulls the veil off of that reality, then they won't be able to get their Syria war. So that could be part of it.
which is
Yeah.
it's
But
absolutely.
on the other hand, I mean, look, this is another, which raises another interesting question, and I'm not sure I know the answer to it. How much power do you think the individual of the president really has? I mean, is it a
None.
lot? Is it a little? Is it somewhere in between? I'm not sure I understand that really. I mean, he must have more than. I mean,
You
he
mean
must
like
have
in their
some
you mean
power.
like in their system, in their hallucination, not like in my opinion, right? Because in my opinion, he has zero power. But
Well, I think he has a lot of power within a very narrow framework, and if you go beyond that framework, then you're in trouble.
Well, what? Maybe the concern of the neoconservatives and is maybe they feel like they could ultimately manage Donald Trump as a person, but maybe it's the symbolism of his victory. Maybe it's what they think it'll mean about public opinion, which is ultimately what they're concerned about the most.
that anyone can just come in and win and fuck up everything that they have their little set plan for every single step of the way.
That destabilizes the. I mean, that might actually lead Americans to believe that we actually live in a democracy. Which would be extremely weird to suddenly believe that it's actually weirdly true. It's not supposed to work this way.
Well, and he can say whatever he wants. He can say that Iraq was a bad idea, even though no one else says that. He's doing things that they don't want normal people to think they can get away with doing. 100%.
Yeah, it's a carefully balancing act. I mean, it always these people are all students of Machiavelli, really. And they understand just how important it is to sort of keep public opinion contained and framed up in a way, because God knows what'll happen. I mean, is it what's next? And by the way, I don't think this is an entirely crazy concern. I mean, I feel like watching the Trump people. I'm concerned about them, actually. I mean, I don't think the left's fears of the sort of sort of populist the violence at the rallies and just the crazy people. And fortunately I banned all the neo-Nazis from my Twitter feed, but these people are real. I mean, they're out there. And I'm not. I mean, the Trump movement is not a libertarian movement, and it represents a sort of a brown shirted statism that in the end the brown shirts hate our guts. I mean, they hate us as much as the Jews. They think we're just apologists for the rootless commercial class, essentially. And I'm worried about these people also, and I kind of get that. I mean, I'm ever so slightly sympathetic when I read National Review's warnings about him and stuff like that. I don't think it's entirely crazy. And you've got this blowback culture in this country, and a lot of it is the left's fault, right? I mean, they push things too far, and then people get pissed, and then it's but I mean, the Nazis the Nazis and the fascists were never friends of liberty, and I don't think Donald Trump is.
Oh yeah.
And the biggest danger is that reciprocal blowback could just accelerate because, like you say, that there's a overreaction on the left about how dangerous they are. But the thing is that overreaction can trigger an overreaction. So I'm thinking of recently where there was a scuffle with a Trump rally, and it ended up being canceled. And actually the protesters got violent with the Trumpkins. And so it just you've brought up comparisons to Weimar, but I think we have to remember that there was brown shirts and for red shirts that fighting in the streets, like Spartacists, and fighting the brown shirts in the streets, and
that literally just happened in Chicago. I mean, literally, that's exactly what just happened in Chicago.
Right. And so when you have radicalization on both sides, and then you've got if the commies get a taste for the possibility of power coming out of this, then they get more aggressive, and both sides just keep reacting, and
then you get a little old lady in Chicago doing one of these, because that's actually from Chicago, and then she's talking to the guy she's talking to is a red shirt, And every reaction I saw on Twitter, I'm big on Twitter. Every reaction I saw was a post of the video of these fights that were happening in Chicago with, this is what empire crumbling looks like. This is what, fascist versus socialist fighting looks like, because it's like, it's an acceleration of both sides feeling that power in their grasp and taking it away from democracy. And they're both very excited for this opportunity. They're both very excited. That's why you have people that are so gung-ho Bernie and so gung-ho Trump. And at the beginning, I thought Hillary would be the worst case scenario. And now I'm thinking like, wait, no, they're like giving us two of the worst possible options so that we have to choose Hillary. Not we.
Yeah, but hey, listen, I wrote an essay the other day, and it was totally speculative and crazy, but this is what I was thinking, all right? So let's say Hillary Clinton wins. And the Trumpsters will, of course, believe that the election was stolen, right? And now we're being ruled by a wild leftist feminist,
And all the Bernie fans get the Ron Paul 2012 feeling of, oh my God, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, but the Trumpsters feel it especially, right? So can you imagine? I mean, we've got a problem of brown shirted movement in this country as it is. I mean, they're increasingly dominant in the Republican Party. We got. I mean, it's starting to feel ever more like 19. I don't know what year, 28, or something. Germany. I mean, so 4 years of a Hillary Clinton president for the Trump people. And the Bernie people, right? I mean, both to feel like you just like
out of control
I mean, like incentivized to a revolutionary,
radicalize. Absolutely.
And 4 years from now, it could be total madness. If anybody thinks that Hillary Clinton's going to solve this, I mean, these people don't go away. These movements don't go away. They get crazier.
They get madder.
So in that sense, gentlemen, I mean, it sounds like a horrible thing to say, but what I'm wondering is, what would you think about, I mean, is it just too dangerous? What if we lance the boil now? What if Trump becomes actual president and labels the government, Trump government, and he completely flops like he's inevitably will? I mean, maybe that's the best hope that we have for human liberty right now. You know what I mean? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it is too soon, right? It's the general population is not ready for the brown or the red side to fully take. So actually, either of them winning would be better than Hillary still, I think. Totally.
Well, yeah, and another comparison that I wrote about recently is with Reagan, because a lot of people think that, well, Trump is anti-establishment, and so he might actually make a difference, as opposed to people who just talk a good talk, but the thing is that they're still beholden to the establishment, whereas Trump is not, because he's this populist and he has his own money and he has his own celebrity. But the thing is that people forget that the conservative movement, that National Review, is so concerned about preserving from Trump that they used to be the outsiders. Like back when with Eisenhower type conservatives. The conservative movement were the barbarians at the gates of the Republican Party, and starting in 1964, when Reagan supported Goldwater, and then working all the way up through Reagan's rise in California, and then finally Reagan actually did take power, and then the conservatives became part of the establishment. They just became integrated with the establishment, but then all the disaffection of the 70s was replaced by Reagan's Morning in America, because of his populist appeal, because he seemed like he wasn't just another, fixture like Ford or something like that, it gave the state a fresh face and more popular legitimacy. So I'd be worried about that happening too, at least with Trump's followers, that, then they'd fall in love with the establishment and the new state all over again.
Oh, I know. But to some extent, I think that, I'm sorry to say, but I think that might be the best we can hope for. I mean, it's terrible to say, but
I've been saying for a while now that I think the best thing is whatever the worst thing is. You know, whatever the worst thing that could happen in terms of like what's going to happen for the country is the best, because that will heighten and quicken the fall. It'll make the crumbling go bigger and on a broader, you know.
Well, I'm just interested in anything that would cause some, people to fall in love with the idea of liberty again. I don't know what that is.
State. Yeah, disillusionment with the state. Absolutely agree.
Disillusionment with the state. And I'm intrigued by this because one of the things that Trump does, and he always has done this, when he takes over, when he builds a tower, he doesn't just call it, Fifth Street Tower. He calls it Trump Tower, right? And when he offers steaks, he doesn't just call it, lean steaks. It's Trump steaks and Trump golf and Trump everything. So then if he's president, it's going to be Trump government, And so every single thing that goes wrong with government is going to be placed at his feet. Your check arrives late. Just it does anything that goes wrong. I mean, the national
park is closed. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that with any outcome, there's going to be dangers and opportunities. And so, if an establishment person, especially if it's through a brokered convention, there's some real silver lining there that. We want people to think that the whole system is rigged and that there's no chance of influencing it through some sort of popular movement. But then if it doesn't, there's the silver lining that, maybe Trump really is ending the Bush dynasty and the Clinton dynasty, and maybe taking the neocons, kicking them out of the heights of foreign policy power, maybe. But the thing is that, we are not going to make a difference one way or the other. And so I think that as libertarians, we just need to not be so caught up with sort of what I call political WrestleMania and like endorsing one side against the other, but say, they're all crooks and the whole system
really
is rotten.
Well, I think we've got a job to do. I mean, look, it's really up to us to just kind of use whatever's going on around us to interpret the world and help people understand the role of that the answer is liberty. I mean, we see people, like you said, Peter, people fighting in the streets, I mean, these kind of Weimar-like scenes in Chicago. It's like what, and you described it very well. You've got people struggling for control of the coercive apparatus. I mean, democracy.
Absolutely.
And the question is like, does anybody really benefit from this kind of war of all against all? I mean, I don't think so. And we're
benefiting from it because more and more people are being pushed away by this, how scary it is.
Right. I mean, we've got a better system, and it was invented about 500 years ago, which is just let's not have a ruler. Let's just.
I don't know. I believe like Dan was saying with Amir Zenadon the other day. I think civilization predates the state. I think the state was invented after anarchy because. Originally, it was freedom. That's what brought us to the point where there was something actually worth controlling, and a surplus was created that people noticed they could control.
No, I think that's right. When I said 500 years ago, I really mean the intellectual movement of liberalism.
Yeah, I know what you meant. You meant.
This sort of consciousness, which I think we're going to have. I mean, at some point, people have to, I don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but we've got to have people just suddenly realize, oh, wow, free speech is better than imposed speech. Free association is better than coerced association. Letting people keep what's theirs is better than coercively transferring. I mean, there's a whole series of sort of implications that come from realizing that liberty works. Yeah. And yet we seem strangely further away from that sort of realization than ever.
I don't know, man. Everyone's a pessimist in this movement except for me. I feel like I'm the only one who believes we're getting so much closer. Because I have conversations with people literally every single day about this that aren't like us, that aren't in our ilk. And literally, I have at least 3 every day. I make a point of it. And I think it's happening sooner and faster, and people are getting it, and it's becoming more and more obvious not just because of what's happening in the elections.
So they seem receptive.
Oh yeah, people are, compared to 5 years ago when I started kind of playing with these ideas right before the Ron Paul 2012 thing. It's exponentially growing. I mean, and it's not just because I have more friends on Facebook that agree with me.
That's a good corrective. I mean, I saw a pie chart the other day that had like the green area where people have not expressed any preference for any single candidate. And it was something like, I don't remember what it was, 97% of the public, and then everybody else is this tiny slice.
Yeah.
But they're loud and vociferous, of course, so
Yeah.
they're going to get noticed.
Yeah.
Well, and it really is. I think that this is what we have to expect to see at the last stages of the state, really.
Of empire, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean,
I think this is the last election. I think this is the last one that'll matter, or have a appearance of mattering. Have that perceived legitimacy is the word. It's still perceived as important.
Well, that's a hopeful note to end on. I've got a speech that I'm about to give in downtown LA.
Really?
Liberty on the Rocks. Jeff, that's how I met you at Liberty. I was going to say I met you at Liberty on the Rocks, and now Dan's giving one.
And LA.
Yep.
Yeah.
At Casey's, the Irish pub we had the buffalo wings at.
Oh, that was an awesome night. I remember it very well. My friends, it was wonderful to see you. Have a great time tonight, all right? Thanks for hanging out with me.
Yeah, same.
Y'all take care.
Bye.
Bye.